can we follow our dharma in a competitive environment where people are prepared to take shortcuts or achieve certain goals at any cost? So this is the age-old dilemma. How can you be honest? How can you be good when dishonesty, when cheating, when lying, when scheming wins out? How can these two things possibly fight against each other? And if they are fighting on exactly the same level, for exactly the same thing, sure, chances are if you're prepared to lie and to cheat and to scheme and to cut corners, on that most superficial level, you'll get there faster. I mean, if you look at something just really basic, like if you're running laps, for example, if you're in a race, you're running laps around a track. Well, if you're prepared to cut out of your lane toward the center, well, naturally you'll get there faster because the distance is shorter. But what's so important to remember is that's not what we're racing for. That's not ultimately the goal. The goal is not success at any cost, or rather material success at any cost, money at any cost, a promotion at any cost. If I said to you, okay, you can get this promotion you want, or you can earn more money than you currently have, but in exchange, you're going to have to take sleeping pills because you're going to be so stressed. In exchange, your husband or your wife are going to leave you. You're going to start fighting with your kids. You're going to become an alcoholic. I mean, I'm making these things up. But if I gave you those options, if I said, okay, I have a magic wand, I've got a genie in a bottle, I'll give you the job you want, I'll give you the income you want, but I'm going to take something from you in the bargain. I'm going to take your ability to fall asleep at night. I'm going to take maybe your marriage, your connection with your kids, because of course it's different for different people. But do not think that people who are lying and cheating and stealing to get ahead are not sacrificing something for it. They are. You just don't know what they're sacrificing. So if you are prepared to sacrifice your inner peace, your ability to look at yourself in the mirror, your ability to fall asleep without some kind of chemical aid, okay, lie, cheat, steal, cut corners. Yeah, it still works sometimes, at least for a short period of time. It's not the stuff that lifelong success is made of. The people I know who are the lifelong success people, the real highest of the high, not just success in this tiny piece, but the real success, even on a financial level. There's always integrity, there's always dharma, there's always honesty. Always. Because a dharma, non-righteousness, doesn't sustain. You could win that race. You might be able to edge somebody out of that promotion. You may be able to scheme a little bit more money out of this or out of that. But it doesn't last. And so when we ask ourselves, when the question comes, how do we stay living in dharma? Well, we set our goals different. We don't have the same goal that people who are prepared to lie, to cheat, to steal, to sacrifice their sleep or their family to get ahead have. Because if those were your goals, you wouldn't be sitting here tonight. You'd be somewhere in the world watching a stock market, or pulling an all-nighter in a company somewhere because that's what you needed to get ahead, you'd be plotting or scheming or lying. The fact that you're here means you have a different goal. A more holistic goal, shall we say. It's not that your goal is, I'm going to renounce the world, I'm going to take sannyas. May you all be blessed with great prosperity, but with great prosperity that includes the inner prosperity. The Dalai Lama has a beautiful, beautiful teaching, and it goes something like this. I'm not going to get it exactly right, but it says something like, the human condition is a tragic irony because we give up everything in order to make money. We give up our health, we give up our peace in order to make money. And then we try to spend that money to buy ourselves our health back. We try to spend that money to buy ourselves our peace back. And it's a beautiful teaching because that's what happens. And so when you realize that when you've chosen a path of dharma, your goal is different. Your goal is not corner office at all costs. 5 or 6 or 8-figure income at all costs. Your goal is holistic prosperity. Your goal is inner connection. Your goal is inner success, which is, yes, we'd like to have abundance, but we'd like to be able to have peace. Because you can make all the money in the world, but if you come home at night to an empty table, nobody's ever taken a brick of gold and sat it in the chair opposite them over dinner. Nobody's ever taken their car out to dinner or brought their shopping bags into bed with them so they had something to, put their arm over in the night. Nobody, at least that I know of. I don't know anybody who's ever crawled into their expensive car and, curled up in the leather seats to cry themselves to sleep when they're in a state of despair and they have nowhere to go and no one to turn to, or buried their face in a pair of designer jeans. Right? I mean, that's not the stuff that we turn to in life. So any concept of success has to be a concept that includes, well, okay, after I've earned it all, who am I going to enjoy it with? I mean, what's the point of being able to eat, caviar 3 times a day if you're eating it sitting across the table from a brick of gold? What's the point of all the wealth if you come home to an empty house? And so when we commit ourselves to dharma, you might lose a promotion now and then. If the boss is blind enough not to understand who's really the energy and the brains behind a project. And it happens, bosses are human beings also. And sometimes they get misled. But in the end, the truth always wins out. And lastly, if you look at the teachings given to us in the scriptures, in the epics, if you look, for example, just really quickly, if we look at the Mahabharata war, right? So in your yoga program, those of you who are in it, whether you've already studied the Gita or whether you're going to study it, you're going to have it in the program. I don't know whether Mataji and Induji have started it yet or not. But the Bhagavad Gita takes place in a battlefield. And there's only one point about this battlefield I want to make now in response to this question, which is that the quote-unquote bad guys, they're not really bad. It's all, of course, multidimensional. And, of course, all of them are aspects of ourselves. The war is actually within ourselves. But if we look only at the plot, only at the most superficial plot of the story, you've got 100 bad guys against 5 good guys. That's your most superficial level plot story of the war. 5 good brothers, 100 bad brothers. I mean, they're not all bad, but they were led by Duryodhana, who was full of greed and ego and whatnot. Maybe we'll talk about that a different night. But for now, what you've got is 5 against 100. Mahabharat we're talking about. So 5 against 100. But how do they win? 5 against 100 is no fight. How do they win? Well, the 5 have, because remember, this is a beautiful, beautiful scriptural teaching that mirrors the war within ourselves. The 5 good guys, who do they have on their side? Krishna. Now, Krishna specifically says, he specifically tells Arjuna and Duryodhana in the very beginning, he gives them both a choice. One of you can have my army, the other one can have me, but I will not fight. So Duryodhana, of course, thinks, well, if he's not going to lift a hand, if he's just sworn he's not going to fight, well, then obviously I'd rather have his army. I mean, we're going to war. We're not going to meditate or to pray. We're not going for enlightenment. We're going to war. I need an army. So Duryodhana picks his army. And Arjuna, of course, has Krishna. Which means they have God with them. And when you speak about coming from a place of dharma, well, that's what you have with you. So no, you don't have the lying, and you don't have the stealing, and you don't have the cutting corners, and you don't have the cunning and scheming. But what we're given, even without all of the other depth teaching that years of courses are rooted in, and an incredible philosophical books and commentaries by, the greatest sages in the world are written on. Aside from that, superficial level plot. 5 good guys with God, 100 bad guys with army. Who wins? And why? So in the end, moving forth with dharma. As I said, you may lose a promotion here or there. May look like you're not getting ahead. But in the end, in the sum total, when we look at the big picture, dharma always wins. Truth always wins. Righteousness always wins. So don't worry. Don't worry about people cutting corners. There's a lot of success to be had in this world. There's a lot of prosperity to be had in this world. And if you find that in a particular place, in a particular race, you're racing against people who keep cutting corners, and in order to get out of their lane and into the center, they keep pushing you down, well, maybe that's not the right place for you to be racing. Yeah, it may be the fastest track to success in your mind. You may have worked years to get a promotion into that firm or this company or that position. But if you're not able to live with dharma and still have any experience of success, then maybe you need to find a different track. There's a lot of different tracks in the world. A lot of different people running their races around. And if you're in one where people just keep pushing you down to get to the finish line first, you may decide, this isn't the right one for me. And that's